It's great to meet you. I love the work you're doing, so thank you for taking a minute out.
Oh no, thank you. I appreciate it. I was like, what? I said, Gene, that name sounds familiar. He's like, what's the name? I was like, Joe Dimino. He was like, oh, he's awesome. You'll enjoy him.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, we had a great time. So yeah, let's get into it. I, I, I want to begin our conversation. I did the same thing with him. I know we're all getting fatigued by COVID, but it was such a momentous time in all of our lives. It changed so many things. How did you ultimately get through that time period, and how did it change the way that you approach work now?
So, believe it or not, I received my EMT certification in December of 2019. And as you know, COVID started to become a little bit more prominent in 2020 in March, and that's when we closed down.
Yeah.
So, mind you, I was literally like in infancy as an EMT at that time, on top of a career change and everything.
Yeah.
So, understanding protocols, policies, and everything, I was just getting myself like really getting used to it because I didn't start my job until February of
Yeah.
2020. Now, I was working for an agency um, before I went to a full time job as an EMT. And so that did affect quite a bit, in a sense of like having to learn the new policies and learn my new job. I mean, like that was like I had only been in that job for a month
Yeah.
and a half when the nation decided to shut down or had to shut down really.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm still just getting my feet wet.
Yeah.
I'm just getting my feet wet. And so it made me look at life a lot differently, I'm gonna tell you that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because the I had an amazing partner, um, and he was just extremely patient with me because running 911 calls is very different from working from an interfacility transfer type of position. Now, my job, we work with interfacility transfers, 911s, and discharges. So, or it may be appointments, sometimes on occasion. Um, but our primary purpose is a lot of the interfacility transfers. So, to give an example of what that's like, it's we work for a hospital, and I cannot name it, I'm not
Sure.
allowed to.
Sure.
Um, and so a lot of the changes that were happening about what we wear, how we wear it, how long we decon the truck, all that was kind of like it was like everything I read in all of our trainings as an EMT started coming to light, started coming to the forefront. And when we were doing our training as an EMT, they were like, well, this may happen. It was very, it wasn't nonchalant. It was like these things could happen.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone in medicine imagined it would be to the level of what we read about, to the type of depth that it had. So, working with patients and seeing them like reading about a lot of that, and then now seeing a patient intubated, that's a big difference. But I'm gonna be honest with you, it changed my life in a sense that I had an appreciation automatically for the field that I'm in.
Yeah.
Because even when I was younger in my 20s, I did ride alongs because I really and truly had that passion of wanting to be an EMT. Sometimes fear can get us. That's a whole nother episode
Absolutely.
talking about achieving your dreams and how influences matter. But to see my partners collectively, because I had multiple partners, but and when we talk about partners, to help people understand, when you're on the truck, sometimes you're giving one person that you work with all the time. And I did have one person I was with. He is a critical care paramedic. At the time that I was working with, all the people I had, most of them were critical care paramedics or advanced paramedics, or some of them were flight paramedics combination, and also worked on the ground. Um, you got to see this stuff in action, and them working and wanting to see a patient live, uh and allowing me to just, I had no choice but to dive in, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to whoof, dive in. And I think that expanded my learning. I am a late career EMT. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after all, I'm fascinated by that line of work and having the grit and the courage to go in there because I watched the show 911 with my family and I can't watch it all the time. They're all about it. They love the intricacies, but there's a part of my brain that just gets overfilled with the fact that life is full of all of these things that are unexpected. So after all of this time of being in that environment and taking all these calls, do you see that life is just a to a certain degree these random moments where people get caught in peril, or is there something more spiritual or something deeper that you've acquired along the way when you've looked at all this? How do you take all of this and separate in your mind between job and how life becomes these situations where people end up in dire situations?
Okay, so my background's a little different, and this is I don't even know which number it would be. I would be honest with you. So when I was in my 20s, I had an opportunity to work for one main hospital, but we traveled for three. And I did autopsies with pathologists. Let me explain. Okay. So many people say, oh my gosh, you work in a morgue. I did work in a morgue, and a morgue is very different from working in mortuary science.
Yeah,
Mortuary science is when, yes, you learn about the body, you are focusing on the embalming process, and you're preparing the client for their end of life for their family. I was on the end where I was in the hospital assisting, trying to find out why did they die. And so I worked with pathologists for, was it 2.5 years, two and a half years, give or take. So being in that environment and working at three hospitals, using tools, having the respect of a body. And I think that's the key,
yeah,
having a respect for the person's body, having the respect for that person is huge for a
yeah,
person to understand. So whenever anyone comes to anyone who is in a need, you have to remember that could be your relative. Number two, when I work with my patients, I work with them because I want to make sure, what you give is what you get too.
yeah,
I'm a very, I don't say spiritual, religious. I believe in one power, God,
yeah,
and I believe He shapes our process and our purpose.
yeah,
And before, and I don't, I'm gonna say before I even leave my home, and my husband, my daughter, they could be witnesses to this. I pray that my hands, my words, and my actions. And when I say actions and hands, I literally mean it because immediately we touch them. May they be a blessing to whomever I am.
yeah,
May they comfort someone because I was once a caregiver for multiple people and I saw the good, the bad, and sometimes some ugly.
yeah,
And I literally mean that.
yeah,
So when I walk into that hospital, having that compassion, that empathy, and understanding of that patient is extremely important. And that's what healthcare is. And when you find yourself not having that type of empathy, that type of compassion, then that's when you need that time to rest. I'm not saying you need to leave. Some people may,
yeah,
but you catch my drift.
yeah,
But that's what allows me to see that individual.
yeah.
I'm going to ask as many questions that I can with the physician because ours is a little different, and I'll talk about interfacility transfers if you need me to,
Sure.
so that people can get a better understanding. But when it comes to patients, I treat them as though they're my own family.
Yeah. That's a perfect answer. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do right now in 2024. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids. It's career
Mhm.
day, and one of the kids is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
I help patients. I help your neighbor. I help your mom and dad whenever they're in need for their health.
S- So let's go back to the beginning of your life. I'm intrigued by how this got woven into your DNA. Where were you born and raised? And what was it that gave you this moxie to see this all the time, put it in its perspective, and help heal people?
Hmm. I don't know. I think it was automatically in my DNA. When my mom and dad um, worked with anybody because they were federal government. Well, yeah, federal government workers. I'll say that just in general because my
Yeah.
mom did more on the outside of so my dad. My dad was a veteran, Korean vet, and the way he worked with the veterans and how he worked in commune with them, and how he belonged to other organizations as well. They were always about caring for community. That's probably the way I best can say it. My mom, on the other hand, um, she would get sick off and on, but you never really knew. Um, and she was all about caring for others. That's all she did. When she was 16 years old, she explained to me when she was 16 years old, she went into a coma. And my grandmother and my mom talked about it, and they didn't think she was going to come out of it.
Wow.
And and so she looked at life as a gift every day she woke up.
Wow.
And they never knew what caused her to go into a coma. They didn't think she was going to graduate when she came out of the coma. They didn't think she would be able to walk. They didn't think she'd be able to think properly when she came out of the coma. So when my grandmother and my mother and my mom's sister, they talked about life as though we need to be thankful and appreciate it every day.
Wow.
So anything and everything that we did was a form of giving, even when we did not have it all. So often people say, "Oh, there was a two parent family home, no struggles, everything was perfect." Da da da. It wasn't. No one family is, and it's not the same as a single parent. And I don't like saying single parent because there is a parent. There's no one single. That parent is there.
Yeah.
So I do want to say that I believe in that.
Yeah.
Um, but everyone has their own challenges. And regardless of the challenge that mom may have had or mom and dad may have had, they always found a way to help somebody who may have needed help. And I guess that was one of the things that was innate. Like my grandmother, I would go down to North Carolina, and no matter how the person was, because we would sit on the porch. I mean, that's North Carolinians, and someone would come by, and it was at that time. If you saw somebody and they just were walking by, you want some lemonade? We can sit on the porch and talk. I mean, that was just how they were,
Yeah.
and they cared for people just in general. And and so I guess that's where it started as a young age of seeing the giving
Yeah.
and the care and the prayer that they did for others. And I think that could have been the start of everything. I had always wanted to be a Spanish speaking uh medical professional. I used to play my little Spanish tapes and stuff and on the records and stuff when I was younger. And I was like, oh, I got the Spanish tape because it was a Spanish tape. So I would say, who knows, but I was saying whatever the book said to say. And I told you, I'm a little nerd. I don't think many people who watch this will say, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I enjoyed that because I wanted to help others in that sense.
Wow.
And that was just, I guess that's where some of it started. And then mom and dad putting me in places and my grandmother putting me in places where we helped others, whether it were the geriatric fams, some of her friends who needed help, even though she was extremely active in her 80s, um, or helping out those who had special needs camp I went to, or I went to West Virginia for church and helped restore homes as a teenager. it could have started there. And then at age 24, with the first call of helping a family member, my godfather and my godmother were in need. And that's where the trajectory began of helping them on a personal level. My godfather stated, "Hey, your aunt, we've been keeping it quiet. And I know that you knew she had Parkinson's and some other issues, but she really is in need of finding a place. So we helped find a place for her." He said, "I just need your help." And then he said, "Now that I have that, now I can really tell you what's going on." I said, "What's going on, Uncle Brownie?" He goes, "I actually have esophageal cancer."
Wow.
And so from there, he was at my hip every single moment. Had my mom and dad to help me with this. And then I called on my pastor to kind of help me because I didn't know. This is my first time, 24. But he looked at me, he said, "You can do it. And I know you will allow me to die with dignity."
Wow.
So I helped him with his cancer treatments, taking him there. And then when it came toward the end, I mean, of course, he gave me his finances. That was before I understood fiduciary and power of attorney and all that. And he didn't know, we didn't know a lot. And so I could tell people a whole lot about that. And I found this wonderful place near Northwest Washington that was a hospice center. And I said, "Do you feel comfortable with me help putting you here?" Because we had been to the hospital multiple times. I mean, where I had to be an advocate for him there. Um, because as you know, esophageal cancer, it's here and it goes straight on down.
Yeah.
So it's spread through his body.
Wow.
And he had a lot of needs. And I was looking for somebody who could have that compassion and care for him. And he looked at me, he said, "I don't know, but today feels like a day that I just say thank you."
Yeah. Wow.
And that was the last day he spoke.
Wow.
Mhm.
Man, that's
And so
deep.
that was where it started, I think, from
Yeah.
childhood.
So who's been a hero for you? Who's been that inspiration for you?
Mhm. I don't have one. I would say family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say family because they, I believe, you know what? God states he's the potter, we're the clay.
Yeah.
And it's, and everyone keeps saying, "Who is your hero?" And I can't pick one. I've picked somebody before, but I want to be really real because, I would say there are some people who show the caring, um, but sometimes you have to give the flowers to those who helped you become who you are. And I would say it's my family, the people who've been around me, who've had the will to see me succeed, and who sometimes even put their own needs to the side when I didn't even know it,
Yeah.
to allow me to grow. So it could be my neighbor. It could literally, when I grew up, it could be, it's my mom, it's my dad, my grandmother, my godmother, my husband, my daughter. They all allowed me to be molded into who I am today. And the partners that I've had on the truck, the schools that I've been in, those who liked me, those who didn't, it allowed me to become stronger. Um, because I had a passion for making sure that the positive was there.
So, when we go out into the world, we run into people all the time. And sometimes we might see somebody in the store and you're just kind of like, and you might catch eyes. And we run into people all the time. But in your profession, you're running into people that absolutely need your help. They need to be saved. How do you compartmentalize that? Do you find some of these things to be random? Do you find it already written in the stars that you're going to run into this situation? How do you kind of take all of these moments? Because all of us go and do jobs and do things, but I see EMTs and doctors in the medical profession in a very specific light. You're really helping people stay on this planet and find meaning and all of these things. You're a beacon to these people. How do you take all that in and frame it? Or do you do that?
I think it's important to know who you are when you go into any kind of profession like that. Sometimes, and I say this because during my EMT training, there were some people who took it seriously, some people who didn't, some people who realized that this was not their field.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't talk about that.
Yeah.
So it's not even a compartmentalization that actually occurs. We have to be very careful with mental health.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful with knowing who you are and how much you can take.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that I think helped me is that with having so many loss in my family, is that counseling does play a role. I had a good friend of mine, my dear friend, and she's like, counseling's okay. Don't let no one tell you it's not. You've experienced so many loss and have gone through so much to care for so many people. It will help you understand how to process.
Yeah.
And when I was a participant as a morgue technician working in histology and cytology, I guess back then more was more compartmentalization than I thought it was. Because working on the bodies, I just wanted to make sure we got found out what was going on with them, helping out pathologists. And I think back then it may have been more compartmentalization. I think for now is understanding how to use the tools that I learned with
Yeah.
of counseling and how to approach each situation. Now, I would like to say that for interfacility transfers, we're talking about patients who have gone into the emergency department. We realize they need specialized care. And so we take them to a higher level of care so that they can receive the needs and the care that they need. That's what interfacility transfers are. So sometimes I can take it as a basic life support person, and sometimes I have to have my advanced level partner take them because they have higher level of need. If they're intubated, then we have two advanced life supports in the back. Um, if it is a patient who has just had a stroke, then sometimes we have someone in the back, heart attack, STEMI, all that. Um, or they could have encephalopathy, which is dealing with, confusion, altered mental status, and they're in the back. So you have to show care for that, so many other things. And so we're taking it from maybe the emergency department. Sometimes we're taking it from having been in the hospital and realize that they still need some more, because you have community hospitals, you have different levels of trauma hospitals. All hospitals have a classification. And so you may be more like, I'm going to put it in layman's terms, you may be more at a community hospital. And so maybe they need to go to a higher level of care, a larger hospital in a city that has more of the specialties.
Yeah. So the time kind of ran away here, but I want to know something. Of all of the things that you've done in your life and achieved and the different career incarnations, what are you the proudest of?
What am I proudest of?
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. The willingness to know it's okay to start over.
Yeah.
Um, I started out, like I said, working for hospitals, and ensuring that what I did um, was what I wanted to do. And it's amazing. That's, like I said, it's another one, but I would love to talk about it, about how you feel like you couldn't do it because of what others told you, and it really went into your soul sometimes, even though you believe in God, but you didn't realize the spirit and the strength that He can give to you until later on. And so, um, when I decided to resign from my position to care for my father, um, I didn't know what I was going to do. I even told my faculty, "Said I don't have a clue." At the time, I was doing CNA because I was going to care for him,
Yeah.
and I was working on my doctorate of health science at the time. But I think when I decided to do the EMT part as well and then finish completing everything, I think that's where I found even more strength.
Well, I'm curious, if you had a dream tonight and ran into the 18-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give that young version of you?
What age?
18.
I was in college.
Yeah.
Um, if it was a different age, I'd tell you something different. 18. All right. So no, seriously,
Yeah.
actually 17 would have been the key for me.
Okay. Well,
8.
we could do 17.
Oh,
Yeah.
seriously?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then
Yeah.
you'll get my story.
Okay.
I would tell my 17-year-old, um, sometimes you have to believe in yourself when you don't feel like you have enough courage, and trust that that courage what can come from within, and that God will never direct you in the wrong path. Trust and believe in him.
Yeah. Would that version of you listen?
I would say, and I was a big faith, I was really into church at the time, but I didn't have that wisdom, all of the Bible knowledge that I do now. Do you understand? Like I
Yeah.
had some, but to the
Sure.
depth of it, I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I guess what that younger version would probably have needed is to have a good verse, and I have many that are here right now, but a good verse that they would give to me, because I was big on writing notes and posting them before post-its were available. I used paper and tape, and I would put it up and read it every day and say, Jewel will be Dr. Jewel White. I will be Dr. White. You know, I always said it when I was younger, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be Dr. White.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a different doctor. I had wanted to be an MD. You know, first it was dentistry, and then I said no, 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 and I was like, okay, well, I'll be an MD. And I just didn't trust and believe in myself because I had so many people in that walk of life that were not loving and compassionate, who were a part of that process of me becoming that MD. Um, that they played a role, because when you're young, you don't really listen in that manner.
Yeah.
It's a different type of knowledge base that you have,
Yeah.
and you do need that kind of encouragement. And so I dealt with a lot of back then I didn't know what they were: microaggressions, biases.
Yeah.
um you can be this instead of that, and I just wasn't in the right, I wasn't put within the right put with the right people at the right time. But I don't regret what I've done. And yes, I would love to have been now maybe a PA or MD, because I felt like I could do more,
Yeah.
not realizing that that training, if I continue to stick with it without having the naysayers, and without having the now spiritual and backing and the wisdom of the word, I think I feel like I could have done even more for those who I cared for. But the caring for those people, not realizing caring for those individuals, allowed me to become who I am today, and to look at medicine differently.
So, speaking of today, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that all the patients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh my gosh, I've never been asked that.
This is the therapy hour.
Oh my gosh. And deep down, I feel like I have so much more to give.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go based off of the last month, I'll say.
Okay.
All right. Um, things that you didn't think you could achieve, you can achieve it. And so, number one, people say that, Jewel, you take time for others. You need to still go back to school because I feel like you can give even more. Um, Jewel, you are loved. Or mama, you're loved, get it from your
Yeah.
daughter. And for people I work with, you have it within. Go ahead, try it. I really believe you have the strength to do it. Uh, and some people also stated, thank you. Thank you for what you've done to help me get over that particular threshold. So I don't know. And I've heard those words. How I would describe myself, I really don't have a other thing than I'm not about me. I want to make sure others are cared for. That's my issue.
I get it.
And that's a whole other psychological
Yeah.
issue. But
Yeah.
I literally mean what I say when I get on my knees. Lord, allow me to be the vessel that you want me to be. Allow me to allow your words, your wisdom, and knowledge that you have attained and placed within my heart and within my mind be given to others, and allow my hands to heal if they are to heal. Allow my hands to do your work, and allow me to be a blessing to others as well.
Beautiful. If anyone wants to reach out, learn more, anything more about your world, where's the best place to go?
www.jwhitewilliams.com. At that moment, I focus on entrepreneurial wellness, educational wellness, and community health. Community health is the one that I love intensely because of just knowing that from my schooling and from my understanding, I realize there's so much more that we could do within our communities. And
Absolutely.
and I know, and I have no shame in saying this. I feel all communities need help, but actually doing more and more of my research, I'm realizing, and I knew this, but haven't even the research to back it up. Minority communities have a lot that need people to help educate them on a lot of things about health and how it affects them. And so rural communities need just as much as well. So rural and minority communities, I would love to just work with them and just have them understand what it means and what resources are out there.
Joel, this has been amazing. You're amazing. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate your
you.
story, and I really genuinely believe that it's people like you that are out there that are the ones that are actually providing the backbone and the strength. I mean, we're in such a misaligned society of giving glory to people and giving all of this acclaim to people that just athletics and actors and all of that, but it's you and those that really feel the pulse of why we're here on this planet. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your story.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. It's been wonderful.
It's been wonderful talking to you as well. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Best of luck. Send my